Hello everybody and welcome back to the F1 2021 My Team Career Mode with me, Dan, and the Radiant Racing team. I could sound a hell of a lot better than I did in the last video. I had to take 3 days off of editing just to recover. I got a little bit better and then things went downhill again, so thank you very much, COVID, for that. Anyway, we're back with the final race in the first half of the season. We're in Silverstone, the home Grand Prix for Radiant Slothz and the Radiant Racing team, hoping to put in a good result for today. Hopefully a high points finish. Anyway, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and comment down below what was your highlight of the Grand Prix. And also, are you enjoying the F1 2022 season so far? With 3 races in, things are looking pretty good. As we get onto the starting grid for today's Grand Prix, it's Lewis Hamilton on pole position at his home race ahead of rival Max Verstappen. I'm sure that can't go wrong. Behind them we have another home favourite, Lando Norris. He's alongside Sergio Perez, followed by Daniel Ricciardo and current championship leader in the real season, Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso, the 2 Spaniards, follow them. And rounding out the top 10 is Yuki Tsunoda and Esteban Ocon. Further down the order, Radiant Slothz lines up P11 alongside Lance Stroll in the first Aston Martin, followed by the other Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel. Then we have Kimi Räikkönen, another former world champion, alongside. George Russell behind them, alongside Mick Schumacher in the first of the Haas. Then Antonio Giovinazzi and Pierre Gasly, who received a penalty, followed by Nicholas Latifi and Zhou Guanyu in the other Radiant Racing car. And finally, it's Nikita Mazepin and Valtteri Bottas with a penalty. And as we line up on the grid for the 5 red lights, I will be doing my best not to cough into the microphone for this commentary. As it's lights out, and away we go at Silverstone. Radiant Slothz gets away well. He's up a position already ahead of Esteban Ocon. In the lead, Max Verstappen just takes away Hamilton's front row start. And we'll start to lead the field from here. Radiant Slothz still battling with Esteban Ocon for 10th place in that final point. Though we're still early on in the Grand Prix, it shouldn't matter too much. Aston Martin and Lance Stroll also getting a look in there on Esteban Ocon. They'll be fighting all the way down the straight towards where Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen had their small accidents at Copse. Doesn't look as though there's going to be too much of that going on today, though, not with the F1 2021 AI. As Radiant Slothz following Yuki Tsunoda, trying to keep it as close as possible. Fernando Alonso just ahead of them, and then we have the rest of the field. One to watch out for, though, he's not on the timing board at the moment, but Valtteri Bottas, started at the back of the field, is in the fastest car on the grid. Let's see where he can finish today. As we're on board with Radiant Slothz during the start, he cruises past Ocon and tucks in behind the AlphaTauri. Ocon comes back at him up the inside, but blocks what he would usually take as a line into that corner. A dive bomb up the inside. Ocon in his way prevents him from doing that, and he's forced to hold position behind these two, who continued to battle all the way onto the straight. Ocon backs out and is nowhere to be seen. As we rejoin the action at the start of the DRS activation, he's going to get it for Yuki Tsunoda, but of course, remember, Yuki Tsunoda is also driving a Honda-powered car, so these two could be fairly evenly matched. You wouldn't guess it with Radiant Slothz having a bunch of sponsors all over the back of his car, which do not spell Honda, but sponsors are there. They are only going to be here for this race. After today, following Grand Prix, we did try to get the sponsors on there. Unfortunately, you have to record this during the during the end of the race, and if you don't advance and save the game, you lose all your progress. Thank you, Codemasters, for designing a flawlessly stable game. As we see Radiant Slothz looking flawlessly stable all the way through Maggots and Beckett's. Loses a bit of time to Tsunoda in that low downforce area there, with right under the gearbox of the AlphaTauri. He hasn't made any progress down the DRS straight, but it looks as though he's holding a good line here through into the final section. He's up the inside of Tsunoda. In the background, Stroll also gets past Ocon, or at least is battling with him right now, side by side into the final corners. There they are. Ocon looks as though he's got it ahead again. Radiant Slothz, though, up to 9th is the onboard. Coming down to the end of the straight. Radiant Slothz tucks in behind Tsunoda and gets the better line into the corner much later on the brakes, and then closes the door on any retaliation that he may get from Yuki Tsunoda as he rejoined. A massive slide for him coming around the final corner. We got Lando Norris coming into the pits. He's the first to stop. Further down the order, you may notice Valtteri Bottas now has moved up 10 positions into 12th. So not far from the points for him, and still a lot of cars left to stop ahead of him. So he's got a good opportunity here to get into the points. As Radiant Slothz gives chase to Fernando Alonso, he's going to have a look down the inside, but just intimidates him for now. I don't think that's going to work against Fernando, but it's worth a go, I suppose, as they come round onto the old pit straight down towards Copse. Up ahead, the top 8, as it were, for the season have broken away. 6 seconds clear of Alonso and Slothz. Missing Lando Norris, who of course came into the pit lane just a moment ago, and Bottas, who started at the back. Radiant Slothz surprisingly not able to get into the top 10 for this Grand Prix, especially at home, but he wasn't far off, likely due to his power unit being a little worn out as he looks up the inside of Alonso. Cleanly round and past the Alpine. Alonso's not coming back at him. That is 7th place now for Radiant Slothz, with 6 laps to go. Of course, we've got pit stops coming up. Speaking of which, multiple cars into the pits now. That promotes Radiant Slothz up to 3rd position. Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, 7 seconds up the road, have yet to stop. 7 seconds being quite a lot, actually, and they're gaining quite rapidly over Radiant Slothz. Clearly, neither of these 3 cars here are actually able to hold their own against these much faster bits of machinery, as we see Radiant Slothz not being overtaken by Alonso down the DRS straight. As that was the onboard of him sliding one up the inside of Alonso and saying thank you very much for the position. I will appreciate those points in my title challenge. Fernando Alonso, on the other hand, nearly drives over the grass for little reason there. Does track extend, as we've seen the AI do multiple times at this point, and concedes.
Box.
In radio for Radiant Slothz, he's coming in. He has managed to thwart Alonso, who's apparently a lap behind him. I don't believe that. All of the timings have frozen. There was Charles Leclerc up ahead going into the pit lane. And there's Valtteri Bottas on the right of the screen. He is caught up to this pack. So under heavy attack from Bottas now. He may end up holding some of these cars in the pits if they get held up for any reason. There's the 2 leaders, or net leaders at the moment. Other drivers coming through the field. Who is currently in the lead? It looks as though Lewis Hamilton is ahead. Lando Norris managed to get ahead of Max Verstappen, so their order has changed somewhat. And Radiant Slothz able to get out ahead. Increases his gap over Alonso to just over a second due to his rapid pit entry. And he's avoided giving Alonso DRS for the first time on this set of new tyres. So he should be fairly safe. As we got on board with someone we've not seen through this season so far very much, Zhou Guanyu, who has stayed out for 9 laps on the soft tyre. Mick Schumacher doing the same thing, and all of the leaders are piled up behind trying to go through Maggots and Beckett's. We've got Lando Norris challenging for the net lead against Lewis Hamilton. We've got both Red Bulls behind. Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris side by side down the back straight. Norris trying to get the slipstream from the Radiant Racing car, but the Mercedes is just faster in a straight line. Mick Schumacher comes into the pits, and Zhou Guanyu has decided he's going to stay out another lap, perhaps to aid in Radiant Slothz catching this pack. He has 7 or so seconds to make up. But Zhou Guanyu is going incredibly slowly. Lewis Hamilton did manage to make it through. And now Lando Norris sits behind with 2 Red Bulls. There's Ricciardo and the 2 Ferraris. They've caught up as well. Radiant Slothz has moved up into 10th as Vettel comes into the pits. He will become P8 again as soon as Zhou Guanyu and Antonio Giovinazzi have come in. Let's see if anyone can get past him here. No, they all sit single file behind. It doesn't appear as though it is helping Radiant Slothz at all, actually. Looking at the timing board, he is dropping back even further from Charles Leclerc. Likely due to the fact that all of these cars have DRS and he doesn't. So perhaps Zhou Guanyu's attempt to help has turned into a hindrance as Lando Norris gets round Zhou Guanyu in cops. Maggots and Beckett's. Max Verstappen is through. It's all coming apart for Zhou Guanyu now. We've got Sergio Perez. He's going to be next. Daniel Ricciardo's tucked into the gearbox as well. It looks as though he might have a look as well. Yes, he does. As they come down towards the pit entry, Zhou Guanyu is likely going to peel off at this point. There he goes. Unfortunately, though, has caused nothing to aid Radiant Slothz there, with the best of intent. So Radiant Slothz, he has gained a few temps as he goes on to the final lap, but someone else who has been gaining some temps is Valtteri Bottas, and you can see the timing board on the left-hand side. He's taken 3 temps out of him in the first 3 corners. The Mercedes is rapid round here. He might even get DRS for the second half of the lap. Radiant Slothz, they would have pushed the time back up again with some quick corners. But again, down the straight, he's going to start losing some time. As we come down the gap now, 1.3 seconds as they come round onto the old pit straight. Behind this pairing, Yuki Tsunoda, absolutely no threat whatsoever at this stage. But he looks as though he's going to be battling Alonso for the final point. As Radiant Slothz comes through cops. Still just over a second. Now under a second between him and Bottas. Bottas came in at an incredible pace right now. He's taken half a second out of him into Maggots and Beckett's. Radiant Slothz makes a mistake. Gets onto the sleeping policeman. And now Valtteri Bottas just 4 tenths behind. He's going to get DRS. 2 tenths behind. He's going to look round the outside into the final couple of corners. Radiant Slothz needs to hold his nerve here. He's out of ERS battery, but Radiant Slothz somehow able to defend some position. Valtteri Bottas does not challenge into the final couple of corners, allows Radiant Slothz to pick up 4 points, and both of them cross the line, and that is the end of the British Grand Prix. Bottas passes in frustration, is likely going to get driver of the day. Yes, he does, for overtaking multiple cars, 12 in the end. A good result for him on that recovery, and of course Lewis Hamilton up at the front wins the British Grand Prix, and something that we would not expect to see is Max Verstappen joining him on the podium here, but Lewis Hamilton, after a run of awful luck this season, has reawoken and is starting to crawl his way back up the driver's standings and helping out Mercedes in their battle with Red Bull. McLaren picking up a crucial podium. They're in their tight title battle with Radiant Racing and Ferrari, so they will appreciate that result from Lando Norris, and of course he will celebrate being his home Grand Prix. Let's get on with the results, the full results of the Grand Prix. Well, here we go. We know our top 3 already. 2 Brits on the podium. Not made it 3 for a record-breaking podium. But they're followed by Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, Radiant Slothz, Valtteri Bottas, and Yuki Tsunoda. Over in the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez still hold first and second position, but Lewis Hamilton moves up to third place ahead of teammate Valtteri Bottas. Radiant Slothz still an outside contender here, but not out of it completely. He's followed by Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo and Pierre Gasly making out the final car in the top 10. Further down the order, Yuki Tsunoda closes the gap to his teammate after that good result in Silverstone. He's now P11. Then we have Esteban Ocon, Lance Stroll, Kimi Raikkonen, Fernando Alonso moves ahead of Sebastian Vettel and tied on 3 points. Then George Russell, Antonio Giovinazzi, Joe Guan Yu, Mick Schumacher, Nicolas Latifi and Nikita Mazepin. Over in the Drivers' Championship, Red Bull hold first position ahead of rivals Mercedes and now have an 81-point lead. Ferrari remain in third place, but just behind them are McLaren, who have moved ahead of Radiant Racing. Behind them we have AlphaTauri, Alpine, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, Williams, and on 0 points it's Haas. We'll catch you in the next one.